Welcome back to the GMP and Quality Fundamentals series, and this is Lecture 20. In Lecture 19, we cover technical agreements with suppliers. Today, we move to a document that lands on the desk of every quality professional almost every working day. The Certificate of Analysis, or COA. Most people glance at a COA, see that the results have a pass next to them, and move on. A quality professional reads every field on that document and knows exactly what to verify, what to question, and what should make them stop before accepting the material. This lecture teaches you how to do that. Here is what we will cover today. Number 1, you will understand what a COA is, who issues it, and what it legally represents in a GMP context. Number 2, you will learn every mandatory field of a GMP-compliant COA and what each one means for your review. Number 3, you will learn the complete step-by-step process for reviewing and verifying a COA against your specifications. Number 4, you will identify the red flags that should immediately stop COA acceptance and trigger an investigation. And number 5, you will understand COA management, including filing, traceability, and what inspectors check when they review your COA records. Let us start with the definition and what a COA actually represents. A certificate of analysis is an official document issued by the supplier certifying that a specific batch of material has been tested and that the results comply with the defined specifications. That word certify is important. This is not a summary or a data sheet. It is a formal declaration of quality for a specific batch. It has legal significance. In GMP, you cannot accept a material or release a product without a reviewed and approved COA on file. Let me be clear about who issues a COA. For raw materials, it is the manufacturer of those materials. For finished pharmaceutical products, the qualified person in Europe authorizes the release, and the COA reflects that. For contract testing, the issuing laboratory issues the COA for the testing it performed. There are 4 things to understand about your responsibilities as the receiver of a COA. First, you need to verify that the COA comes from a supplier who is on your approved supplier list. A COA from an unqualified source is not acceptable regardless of how good the results look. Second, a COA certifies what the supplier found when they tested their material. It does not certify the identity, integrity, or quantity of what arrived at your door. Those must be verified separately through incoming inspection. Third, the supplier's pass or fail is based on their specification. You must always compare results to your own specification. These can differ. And fourth, receiving a COA does not mean you must accept it. Your QA team reviews and makes the acceptance decision independently. Let us walk through the header section of a COA. The fields at the top of the document that identify the material and the batch. The supplier name and address must match your approved supplier list exactly. If the COA comes from a different entity, even a sister company of your approved supplier, that is a finding and requires qualification. The product or material name must match exactly what you ordered. If your purchase order says tryptone soy broth and the COA says tryptic soy broth or TSB, this needs to be confirmed. Different trade names for the same material must be verified in your specification. The catalog or article number allows you to cross-reference to your purchase order and your material specification. Verify it matches the batch or lot number. This is critical for traceability. It must be unique and specific to this batch of material. This is the number that must match the physical label on the container when you receive the delivery. The manufacturing date gives you the starting point for calculating shelf life. Check this against the expiry date to confirm the material has not been sitting in the supplier's warehouse for an unexpectedly long time before shipping. The expiry or retest date. Check that the material will not expire before you have finished using it. Your process timeline must fall within the valid shelf life. Quantity produced should align with the quantity delivered. Large discrepancies warrant investigation, and the issue date of the COA must be after the manufacturing date and after all testing is completed. A COA dated before the testing was finished is a data integrity issue. The results table is the technical heart of the COA. This is where most of your verification work happens. Each row of the results table represents one test parameter. For each parameter you need to check 4 things. First, the test method. Is the method listed on the COA the same method that your technical agreement or material specification requires? If you agreed on pH.ur 2,6,12 for total aerobic count and the COA shows a different method, that is a deviation. Second, the specification limit. Take note of the specification listed on the COA. But do not rely on it. You will compare the result to your own specification in a moment. Third, the result. The actual numerical or qualitative result of the test. Fourth, the pass or fail designation from the supplier. This tells you whether the result meets the supplier's specification. But again, your review goes one step further. Looking at the example table on this slide, you can see typical parameters for a microbiological culture medium: appearance, solubility, pH, loss on drying, total aerobic count, heavy metals, sterility, and mycoplasma. Each has a specific test method referenced, a specification limit, the actual result, and a pass designation. All of these look straightforward when all results clearly pass. The critical skill is what you do when a result is close to the limit, when a method reference is missing, or when a result in one column does not align with what your own specification requires. The bottom section of the COA contains the release statement and the authorizing signatures. This section is what makes the COA a legally valid GMP document. The release statement is a formal declaration that this batch has been reviewed against the relevant specification and that all test results are within the defined limits. It must reference the specific batch number. A generic statement without batch identification is not adequate. The authorizing signatory must be a named individual with a title that reflects appropriate authority. Head of Quality Control, Quality Assurance Manager, Qualified Person. The signature must be dated. And crucially, the date must be after all testing was completed. If the signature date is before the latest test completion date, the COA was signed before the data was available, which is a data integrity concern. Some COAs include a laboratory accreditation stamp, for example ISO 17025 accreditation from a national body like DIAC in Germany or UKS in the United Kingdom. If the COA references accreditation, verify that the accreditation is current and relevant to the test methods performed. An accreditation stamp that expired 2 years ago provides no assurance. A COA that is missing the release statement entirely, or that carries no authorizing signature, is not a valid GMP document. You must return it to the supplier for a properly authorized version. Never accept an unsigned COA. Now let me walk you through the complete step-by-step COA review process that should be followed every time. Step 1. Check supplier identity. Before reading a single test result, confirm that the issuing supplier is on your approved supplier list. If the COA comes from a site that was not audited and qualified, the results do not matter. The material cannot be accepted. Step 2. Verify material identity. Confirm that the product name, grade, and article number on the COA match your purchase order and your approved material specification exactly. Any discrepancy must be resolved before proceeding. Step 3. Confirm batch traceability. Record the batch number and cross-reference it against the physical label on the container that was received. They must match exactly. If they do not match, quarantine the material immediately. Step 4. Check all dates. Manufacturing date, testing completion date, COA issue date, and expiry date. Is the material within its shelf life? Will it remain within shelf life for your entire intended use period? Step 5. Verify test methods. Compare every method listed on the COA against the methods required by your technical agreement or your material specification. If the supplier has used a different method without notification, that is a deviation that must be raised. Step 6. Compare results to your specification. This is the most important step. Do not read the supplier's pass or fail column. Open your own approved material specification and compare every numerical result against your own limits. The supplier's specification and your specification may not be identical. Step 7. Check the release statement and signature. Is there a formal release statement? Is it signed by a named, qualified individual? Is the signature dated after all testing was completed? Step 8. Document your review. Record who performed the review, the date, the specification version used for comparison, and the outcome. Accepted or rejected. This review record must be attached to or clearly referenced in your batch record. Now, the most important part of this lecture: the red flags. The situations that must stop you from accepting a batch and trigger an investigation. Red flag number 1. A result that is at or very close to the specification limit. A total aerobic count result of exactly 100 colony-forming units per gram against a limit of less than or equal to 100 is technically passing. But it should concern you. Request the full raw data. Check the method precision at that concentration. Were any repeat tests performed before this result was selected as the final value? A result right at the boundary needs scrutiny. Red flag number 2. The specification on the COA differs from your approved specification. If the supplier's COA shows a limit of less than or equal to 200 CFU per gram but your specification says less than or equal to 100, the batch may pass the supplier's COA but fail your requirements. Always compare to your specification. Red flag number 3. The test method listed differs from the method agreed in your technical agreement. If you agreed on a specific pharmacopoeial method and the COA references a different method, do not accept until the supplier justifies the deviation and you have reviewed whether the alternative method is equivalent. Red flag number 4. A missing or unsigned release statement. Return the COA to the supplier. Do not accept the batch until a properly authorized version is received. Red flag number 5. Material that is expired or will expire before the end of your intended use period. Calculate this carefully based on your full process timeline, not just your receipt date. Red flag number 6. The batch number on the COA does not match the label on the physical container. This is a potential mislabeling or mix-up event. Quarantine the material immediately. Open a deviation. Do not use, do not process, do not move the material until the investigation is complete. For every one of these red flags, the correct action is the same. Stop. Quarantine. Raise a deviation. Investigate. Do not use until resolved. I want to address a very common misconception about COAs. Many quality professionals and production teams believe that if the COA passes, the material is approved for use. This is incorrect. The COA tells you what the supplier found when they tested their material at their facility. It does not tell you what happened to that material during transport. It does not guarantee the accuracy of the supplier's testing. And it does not verify the physical identity and integrity of what actually arrived at your site. COA review confirms several things. That the supplier tested this specific batch and the results met their specification. That the test methods are documented. That a qualified person authorized the release. And that the documentation is consistent with your technical agreement requirements. But incoming inspection adds things that COA review cannot provide. The physical identity check. Container integrity, label accuracy, and seal condition. Visual inspection of the material itself. Quantity verification against the delivery note. A rapid identity test such as infrared or near-infrared spectroscopy to confirm that the material is actually what it claims to be. And sample retention, taking a representative retained sample and storing it under appropriate conditions for future reference if a dispute arises. Both activities are required. COA review and incoming inspection are complementary processes. One does not replace the other. Once a COA has been reviewed and the material is accepted, the management of that COA becomes a GMP responsibility. Every COA must be linked to the batch record for the batch in which that material was used. The link must be unambiguous. Auditors and inspectors will trace backwards from a finished product batch record to the raw material lot, to the COA for that lot. Every step in that chain must be documented and retrievable. Maintain a COA file organized by supplier, material type, and lot number. When an inspector asks for the COA for a specific material lot received 18 months ago, you must be able to retrieve it within minutes. If retrieval takes hours or it cannot be found, that signals a document management problem. Retains COAs for the required period. In GMP pharmaceutical environments, the typical retention requirement is 1 year after product expiry or 5 years after batch release, whichever is longer. For some products and some markets, the requirement is longer. Check your local regulations and your product-specific requirements. Rejected COAs must also be retained. If a COA triggered a deviation or was rejected, that COA must be kept with the deviation record. Do not destroy rejected documents. On the question of digital versus paper COAs, electronic COAs are acceptable if they are received through a validated system and the electronic signature meets applicable regulatory requirements. A scanned PDF of a handwritten COA received by email is not equivalent to an original electronic record and needs careful assessment in your electronic record management procedure. Let me tell you exactly what inspectors look for when they review your COA files. The first question is whether a COA exists for every lot of every material used. Inspectors will pull your material usage records and cross-reference them against your COA file. Any lot used without a corresponding COA on file is an immediate finding. The second question is whether the COA was reviewed before the material was used. The review record must be dated before the material was released for production or testing use. A COA reviewed after the material had already been used is a data integrity finding. The third question is whether results were compared to your specification and not just the supplier's. This is the most commonly missed requirement in COA review processes. Inspectors specifically ask to see the specification that the reviewer used. If your review process only checks the supplier's pass or fail column without comparing to your own specification document, that is a process gap. The fourth question is whether the COA batch number is traceable to the physical material received. Inspectors will trace the batch number from the COA to the delivery note, to the container label, to the batch usage record. All four must be consistent. The fifth question is whether the COA comes from an approved supplier. COAs from suppliers not on your approved supplier list are a major finding regardless of the results they show. And the sixth question is how quickly COAs can be retrieved. An inspector will name a specific batch from the past and ask to see the COA. If it takes your team more than a few minutes to find it, that is a sign of poor document management and triggers further investigation of your records system. Let us bring the lecture together. 6 things to remember from Lecture 20. Number 1. A COA is a legal quality declaration, not just a data sheet. Accepting a batch without a properly reviewed and documented COA is a GMP violation. Number 2. Review every field. Supplier identity, material identity, batch number, all dates, test methods, numerical results, and the authorized release statement. Number 3. Always compare COA results to your specification. Not the supplier's pass or fail column. Not the supplier's limits. Your specification. These may differ. Number 4. Know the red flags. Results at specification limits, batch number mismatches, unapproved test methods, missing signatures, and expired material must all trigger investigation before any material is used. Number 5. COA review and incoming inspection are separate and complementary. The COA tells you what the supplier tested. Incoming inspection verifies what you received. Both are required. Number 6. Every COA must be linked to the batch record, filed in a retrievable system, and retained for the required regulatory period. Rejected COAs must also be kept. That is Lecture 20 complete. Coming next in Lecture 21 we cover supplier qualification and auditing. You will learn how to qualify a new supplier from risk assessment through to approval, what a supplier audit looks like in practice, and how to manage suppliers who start to underperform. This lecture connects directly to what we covered in Lectures 19 and 20 and completes the supplier management picture. If this lecture helped you, please give it a like. Subscribe if you have not already. And drop your questions in the comments below. I read every one and I reply. I will see you in Lecture 21.